They left me penniless in the will. They had no idea I'd built an empire from zero. The mahogany-paneled conference room of Whitmore and Associates law firm had seen countless family dramas unfold, but few as shocking as what transpired that gray October morning in Boston. Alex Hartford sat in the worn leather chair, his fingers nervously tapping against the polished table as the family attorney cleared his throat and began reading the last will and testament of Richard Hartford, patriarch of the Hartford business dynasty. The room was thick with tension. Alex's stepmother, Margaret, sat primly across from him, her perfectly manicured nails drumming silently on her designer purse. His half-brother Michael smirked from the corner, already knowing what was coming. His half-sister Sarah avoided eye contact entirely, staring out the window at the bustling streets of downtown Boston. The attorney's voice droned on about various bequests. The family's sprawling estate in Martha's Vineyard went to Margaret, the yacht to Michael, the art collection to Sarah. With each bequest, Alex felt his stomach tighten. Then came the moment that would change everything. The family business, Hartford Industries, a manufacturing empire built over 3 generations, was to be split equally between Michael and Sarah. The family home in Beacon Hill, worth $8 million, went to Margaret. The investment portfolio, the vacation properties, the vintage car collection, all divided among the 3 of them. And Alex? The son who had worked alongside his father for 15 years, who had sacrificed his own dreams to help build the company, who had been promised he would inherit his rightful place in the family legacy. He received exactly $1. The silence that followed was deafening. Alex's hands trembled as the weight of betrayal settled over him like a suffocating blanket. He had known his relationship with his stepfamily was strained, but this level of calculated cruelty was beyond anything he could have imagined. The attorney continued reading, explaining that Richard Hartford had made these changes to his will just 6 months before his death, during a period when Alex had been traveling extensively for the company. The same trips that had been keeping him away from his father's bedside. During his final illness trips that his stepfamily had encouraged, claiming they would handle his father's care. Now he understood why. Margaret's voice cut through the silence, like a blade, cold and measured. She explained that Alex wasn't really family, not in the way that mattered. He was Richard's son from his first marriage, and while Richard had felt obligated to provide for him during his lifetime, the true Hartford legacy belonged to his real children. Michael leaned forward, his voice dripping with mock sympathy. He suggested that Alex should be grateful for the education and opportunities he'd received. After all, he was still young enough to start over, to make his own way in the world. The dollar was symbolic. He claimed a reminder that everything Alex had achieved was because of the Hartford name, not his own merit. Sarah finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. She almost seemed apologetic, but her words cut just as deep. She mentioned that Alex had always been different, that he'd never quite fit in with their family's social circle. Perhaps this was for the best a chance for him to find where he truly belonged. Alex sat in stunned silence, watching 3 people he had considered family reveal themselves as strangers. The conference room suddenly felt smaller, the walls closing in around him. He thought about the countless family dinners where he'd felt like an outsider, the business decisions made behind closed doors, the subtle ways he'd been excluded from the inner circle. But what hurt most was the realization that his father, the man who had taught him about integrity, hard work, and family loyalty, had orchestrated this betrayal. Had Richard Hartford truly believed his eldest son was unworthy of the family legacy? Or had he simply been too weak to stand up to his second wife's manipulations? The attorney handed Alex a single envelope, his inheritance. Inside was a crisp $1 bill and a brief note in his father's handwriting. Build your own legacy, Dad. As Alex stood to leave, Margaret's parting words echoed in his ears. She reminded him that his apartment was in a building owned by the family trust, and that his position at Hartford Industries was, of course, terminated effective immediately. He had 30 days to vacate the premises. Walking out of that conference room, Alex felt the weight of losing everything he had ever known. His family, his home, his job, his future, all stripped away in less than an hour. The Boston streets seemed different now, less familiar, as if the city itself had rejected him along with his family. But as he walked through the Common, past the swan boats and the changing autumn leaves, something began to shift inside him. The initial shock and hurt were giving way to something else, a burning anger that slowly transformed into fierce determination. They thought they had destroyed him. They thought he would disappear into obscurity, broken and defeated. They had no idea that they had just lit a fire that would burn brighter than anything the Hartford name had ever achieved. Alex looked down at the dollar bill in his hand, his entire inheritance from a multi-million-dollar empire. He folded it carefully and placed it in his wallet. It wouldn't be spending money, it would be a reminder. 5 years later, Alex Hartford stood in his corner office on the 32nd floor of a gleaming skyscraper in Manhattan, looking out at the city that had embraced him when his own family had cast him aside. The view was spectacular. Central Park stretched out below, and in the distance, he could see the Hudson River reflecting the afternoon sun. The journey from that devastating day in Boston to this moment had been anything but easy. Those first months after the will reading had been the darkest of his life. With no job, no references he could use, and rapidly dwindling savings, Alex had been forced to take whatever work he could find. He'd started as a night security guard at a tech startup in Cambridge, working 12-hour shifts to pay for a cramped studio apartment in a questionable neighborhood. During the day, he'd taught himself coding, devouring online courses and tutorials with the same intensity he'd once applied to learning the family business. The breakthrough came when he noticed the startup's security system had significant vulnerabilities. Instead of just filing a report, Alex had spent his nights developing a comprehensive security protocol that would address not just the immediate issues, but create a scalable system for growing companies. When he presented his solution to the startup CEO, the young entrepreneur was so impressed that he offered Alex a position as chief security officer. It was a fraction of what he'd earned at Hartford Industries, but it was a start, and more importantly, it was his. Alex threw himself into the work with the passion of someone who had lost everything and refused to lose again. He studied every aspect of the business, from venture capital funding to marketing strategies to international expansion. He networked relentlessly, building relationships with investors, entrepreneurs, and industry leaders who saw potential in the intense young man with the brilliant mind and unshakable determination. Within 2 years, Alex had saved enough to start his own company, Hartford Security Solutions. The name was deliberate. He wasn't running from his past. He was reclaiming it on his own terms. The company's first major contract came from a Fortune 500 corporation that had been the victim of a massive data breach. Alex's team didn't just fix the problem, they created a revolutionary security framework that became the industry standard. Other companies began reaching out, desperate for the same level of protection. Alex's approach was different from anything else in the market. While traditional security companies focused on reactive measures, Hartford Security Solutions offered predictive threat analysis, using artificial intelligence to identify vulnerabilities before they could be exploited. It was cutting-edge technology. Backed by old-fashioned work ethic and customer service, the business grew exponentially. Alex reinvested every dollar of profit back into research and development, hiring the best minds in cybersecurity and technology. He treated his employees like family, the kind of family he'd always wanted, but never had, offering generous benefits, profit sharing, and a culture of mutual respect and loyalty. By year 3, Hartford Security Solutions had offices in 12 cities and was generating $50 million in annual revenue. Alex had become a sought-after speaker at industry conferences, sharing his insights on cybersecurity and entrepreneurship with audiences who had no idea about the personal betrayal. That had fueled his success. The financial press began to take notice. Forbes featured Alex on their 30 Under 30 list, calling him a visionary who had revolutionized cybersecurity. The Wall Street Journal ran a profile titled "The Security King," how Alex Hartford built an empire from nothing. But Alex wasn't satisfied with just one successful company. He used the profits and credibility from Hartford Security Solutions to launch Hartford Ventures, an investment firm focused on funding innovative startups. His experience as an entrepreneur gave him unique insights into what made businesses succeed or fail, and his track record of picking winners became legendary. The portfolio grew to include everything from biotechnology companies developing breakthrough cancer treatments to sustainable energy startups revolutionizing solar power. Each investment was carefully chosen not just for its profit potential, but for its ability to make a positive impact on the world. Alex's personal wealth grew alongside his business empire. He purchased a penthouse apartment in Manhattan, a beach house in the Hamptons, and a ranch in Montana. He collected art, not to show off, but because he genuinely appreciated beauty and creativity. He drove a Tesla Model S, flew in private jets, and dined at the finest restaurants. But he never forgot where he came from. More importantly, he never forgot the people who had helped him along the way. Alex established the Hartford Foundation, a charitable organization that provided scholarships to underprivileged students and funded programs for aspiring entrepreneurs. He personally mentored dozens of young people, sharing the lessons he'd learned about resilience, determination, and the power of turning adversity into advantage. The Foundation's annual gala had become one of the most prestigious events in New York's social calendar. Politicians, celebrities, and business leaders competed for invitations, knowing that Alex Hartford's approval could open doors throughout the city's power structure. Through it all, Alex maintained his focus on the future, rather than dwelling on the past. He rarely spoke about his family or the circumstances that had led to his exile from Boston. When reporters asked about his background, he would simply smile and say that everyone's story had difficult chapters, but what mattered was how you chose to write the ending. But late at night, in the quiet of his office, Alex would sometimes take out his wallet and look at that folded dollar bill, still there after all these years, a reminder of how far he'd come and how much further he intended to go. The Hartford name was no longer just associated with a family business in Boston. It had become a symbol of innovation, integrity, and the American dream of building something meaningful from nothing. Alex had taken his father's parting words, "Build your own legacy," and created something that would endure long after the original Hartford Industries had faded into obscurity. He had proven that sometimes losing everything is exactly what you need to gain the world. And he was just getting started. The boy who had been left with nothing but $1 and a broken heart had become the man who built an empire on the foundation of his own determination. They thought they had destroyed him, but they had only revealed the strength that had been inside him all along. Alex Hartford was no longer the forgotten heir. He was the architect of his own destiny, the author of his own story, and the living proof that the greatest legacy isn't what you inherit, it's what you create.
Thank you for watching this story unfold with us here on M&A The Story Unfolds. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new tale. We'd love to know where you're watching. Leave a comment below and tell us what part of the world you're joining us from. Your support means everything. See you in the next story.